with us here in the studio is Rise Analyst Mahmud Jega. Good to see you and thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Well, history is made here. One person has 2 reigns, 14th Emir and now the 16th Emir. How does this work first for the political dynamics of Kano, knowing that Kano is one of the hotbeds of politics on the continent?
It is. Well, as you can see, what happened today, many people, especially supporters of Sanusi, are celebrating. Others are very unhappy. In Kano especially, most of the feeling is almost strictly along political party lines. But for the institution as a whole, it is a tragedy, because removing even one emir is quite tragic, not to mention removing 5 emirs in one fell swoop. It is culturally and historically a tragedy, but we all saw it coming, because in Kano, as well as in 1 or 2 other states, the traditional institutions has been dragged completely into the political terrain, and it is now looking like every governor comes with his own emir. Now that will be very, very tragic for the traditional institution, although sometimes it is the traditional rulers themselves that caused it. They are supposed to be insulated completely from politics, but you hear stories here and there of their involvement. Now, the rulers of Kano now, the Konkosia movement, as they are saying in this video clip, they believe that Sanusi was removed in 2020 essentially because he supported them in the 2019 election. Although, the situation is a bit complicated, because on the other hand, the Ganduje people, he had been having several running battles with the state government under Ganduje, not just the state government, but even the federal government of Buhari was unhappy with him over some of his utterances. And because of that, he probably had to support the Konkosia people. That time they were not in NNPP, they were in PDP. Right. And we saw it because as soon as the 2019 election finished, which was very controversial in Kano, supporters of Ganduje entered the government house, brought the emir's portrait, smashed it on the ground. So it was purely political. And it was not surprising that soon after they removed him. Now the Konkosia people are in power and they feel that this guy was removed because of us. So really, and they didn't hide it. They said it even during the campaign, that they will dissolve those 5 emirates and, well, at least the 4 new ones, and then they will reinstate him, which is exactly what they have done.
So what does this really mean, not just for the seat of the Emir of Kano, because it looks like politics may have weakened the seat of the Emir, which before now was highly revered. And then what happens to the 4 emirates, or the 4 emirs, who were removed? What do you envisage happening in Kano State?
Well, first of all, we pray that there will be peace, because it will be tragic if lives are lost or people are injured because of what happened. But there is no doubt that this kind of thing will weaken the prestige and authority and influence of the traditional institutions, especially because removing emirs is such a sensitive thing that the politicians do it in a coup-like fashion. What happened in Kano between yesterday and today, we can only hope that they followed the procedure, because the chief's appointment and deposition law since colonial times outlines procedures for removing an emir. He has to commit some offense, you have to query him, you have to set up a committee, give him fair hearing to come and defend himself, and then after that the governor receives the report, and if it recommends his removal. But you couldn't possibly have done that between yesterday and today. And even the appointment, okay, for example, the emir who has been removed was appointed by a governor under a law. Even if you repeal the law, he still has an appointment letter. So I didn't hear the state government today saying they have deposed him. What they are saying is that because the law has been repealed, automatically he has lost his position. You see, I'm not a lawyer, but I suspect matters like that could be contested in court, even though most probably it will not, because he may not go to court. But there are all these issues about what the procedure followed. Also, the governor said in his statement that he, in consultation with the kingmakers, he is appointing. It's more than consultation. The law provides how the kingmakers will advertise, receive applications, screen the aspirants, then recommend 3 to the governor, depending on the state. In some states, the governor must approve the first one. But in some states, because you see, this law was inherited from northern Nigeria, and various states amended their own, some didn't. So, and in some cases, out of the 3, the governor is free to choose anyone. Again, I doubt if that was done, if all you say is that in consultation with the kingmakers. As to what you said about the other emirs, I think the government statement said everybody should revert back to where he was before the law. Some of them came straight from outside, but some were district heads of their places who were elevated. So if they want, they can probably still occupy the seat as district heads now, not as emirs. But
listening to you, you see clearly you're talking about 2 angles I see here. Traditional institutions so soaked in politics now, but this is not the first time. Even when we see politicians go before royal fathers, they say, I'll give my blessings to everyone. But is this happening because of the personality of the emir, maybe in this case being outspoken? And hasn't the state pitched cousins, in this case brothers, against themselves, and a line of descendants that may ultimately see this as something that they may be talking in bad whispers? Yeah, well, certainly Sanusi's outspokenness was central to the problems that he had with the previous state government, and even with the previous federal government of President Buhari, because he kept saying things about the economy and about traditions and sometimes even religion and things like that. And many people thought that it is not a traditional ruler who should say that. You know, politicians can say it, some clerics can say it, but of course it was presented by some people as reforming the culture and traditions. But personally, I thought that the traditional institution is not for reform. You know, it's not every social institution that is for reform. I remember when Pope Francis was appointed, CNN asked the Archbishop of New York, now what reforms will he bring? He said, no, it is not the Pope's duty to reform. It is his responsibility to conserve.
Right. So what you're saying is that the traditional institutions should remain as traditional as possible. But in today's world, with the socioeconomic challenges and even political challenges, you know, that are faced, in whose interest would it be, you know, for an emir, for example, with Sanusi's stature, you know, to keep quiet and stay mum about, you know, gender issues, which we know he's very, you know, passionate about, and so many other, you know, national issues that he always weighs in from time to time?
Well, you see, as I said, the different institutions in society have different roles. There are all kinds of other agencies that can speak for gender reform and all that. The National Assembly, CSOs, everybody can do that. But if they want to preserve themselves in this form, the traditional institutions really have to stay away from open political debate. And you know, it is not that they don't speak. All the other emirs, when they see governors or president behind closed doors, they say things maybe as carefully as possible. The problem was having to say controversial things publicly. I think that is the issue. Politicians can do that, academics can do that, CSOs can do that, trade unions can do that, students, everybody.
But don't you think it holds more weight when an Emir of Kano or B of Onitsha or, you know, Alake of Egbaland weigh in on, you know, social issues? But
for a very good reason, all those big traditional rulers you mentioned are not doing that.
So it comes back to preservation.
Exactly.
Of the tradition.
Exactly. And also the expectations of certain institutions.
So do you expect Emir Sanusi, as it takes on, you know, because is now the 16th Emir of Kano, do you expect a more reserved, a more sober Emir of Kano?
I don't know, but there is no doubt that I hope these 4 years off the throne, he would have learned lessons at least to calm down a bit. He can still say things sharply behind the scenes, but even the current government that reinstated him will not be happy if he were to criticize some of its actions publicly. That is my own that's the way I see.
And lastly, quickly, if we can do this very shortly and quickly, do you think that this has anything to do with the coming elections in the next 3 years?
No, this has more to do with the last election. I mean, the Konkosia people want to solidify their hold and also justify their elections. I think it has more to do with the last election than with the next one.
Right. Thank you so much for joining us on Newsnight, as always.